Welcome, Ziggy1X here, and I am in my new abode, setting up a little bit of shop today, but there's a nice little scene in the background here, and my creaky chair. So yes, I'll have to get that addressed at some point. But let's go ahead and take a look at the news that dropped last night. I was in a NyQuil-induced delirium at that point, and this is the first chance I felt relatively human to go ahead and take a look at our newest character, actually two characters, their weapons, and one other weapon that I think is very, very nice. So let's go ahead and take a look at this real quickly. We have here our newest character, which is Fractured Songstress. So this is Fractured Marie. Now, Marie here is going to be filling the role of a sort of a support character. And she's also going to be able to benefit very nicely in arena, because you can see here there's a few things that really lean towards an arena specialist. First of all allies agility up by 20% for 60 seconds. So this is a timed agility. So when you're looking at those agility stacks that you're getting from those temporary timed agility from your subjugation weapons and your other weapons, this adds to the entire party's stacks for that 60-second duration, or however long it is. This is important because those timed agility stacks are very impactful. And if you mix these with standard agility, bumping it up and basically scaling everything, you're getting a lot of agility out of these characters. And so, not always, but often enough times, he who goes first wins. Now, she could help the whole party to lean into that, but let's take a look at the rest of her kit here. You can see by this one right here, increases the attack of equipped Dark Affinity weapons for the whole party, again, lending to that support role. This is 50%, so it's good, and it's just basically saying that if your party is focusing on Dark, then they're going to benefit from her passives as well. And this last one is another timed Valiance buff, which is 10%. And so her character skill is interesting as well because it lends her to being useful outside of arena. So 150% damage times 4, okay? That's not very much these days, but that's fine. Reduced defense by 30%. Now, what we're seeing in the more difficult content, like the Fate board and the Subjugation, is we're really starting to see a lot more impact from reducing the defense of the enemies that we're facing. And so it's becoming more useful. And reduces the skill cooldown for all allies by 20% if own affinity is Dark. This could be interesting for something like when you're going up against a moose and you're maybe trying to squeeze in that second character skill during the knockdown period. This is something that's outside of my expertise, though. I really don't have a whole lot of experience in subjugation, so I'm going to leave that to much more capable individuals to tackle. But then we get to the debris, and this one's kind of a mixed bag for me. Agility up by 15% and attack down by 15% for 60 seconds. So this just lends itself basically to you being able to slap another extra agility stack onto a character and see if they'll get out before the other team. I'm not entirely sold on this one. I actually think this is a pretty hard pass. If you get it over time, fine, and you may be able to find some uses for it, but I'm not really sold on that one. So this is where I think that this banner really shines for me, is on the weapons. Let's take a look, and Marie is a good character. All these characters are good characters for their own rights. But what we're seeing more and more is, let's just take this for example. We just got Celebratory Yuzuki, and he benefits from a Void Pursuit, meaning that if he has a main hand Dark Affinity weapon equipped, he can gain a big old chonky increase to his damage based off of chain multipliers. So if he's running as a full turret after your other chainers are building up that chain, he's going to be absolutely melting things. He's going to be doing a lot of damage, even at 0 awakenings. So let's take a look at the sword real quickly. Now, typically what we're looking for in arena is 14-second and 15-second cooldowns. So what do we got here? We got 14-second, 55% damage times 4. That's pretty standard fare these days for the more top tier arena weapons. And then we got 45% times 5, increases all allies' defense by 7%. Don't ask me where that number came from, for 10 seconds. So this is a absolute nothing burger on the secondary ability, but the damage multipliers are great. You got 4 hit and a 5 hit. Now let's look at the next one. dark damage dealt up by 30%, and agility up by 20% for 60 seconds. Okay, so those are 2 more agility stacks for your timed agility. So this weapon right here, and by the way, that second one was a 15 second and you had a 14 second. So that's exactly what you want from these arena weapons if you're doing a full cooldown team. In theory, if you're basically stacking your cooldown memoirs and then you got cooldown weapons attached to them, and like your dark memory weapons, and then basically what happens is they're firing off their abilities before the other team. If you have a lot of timed agility, then in theory you're jumping out in front of the other team to get in a few extra hits. And so this is actually a very consistently good strategy. There are other strategies which are emerging that are really, really, really good, and we can talk about those at another time. But this is an excellent dark weapon. It honestly, for me, it works better with celebratory Yuzuki than it does with celebratory Mori, my opinion. But when I put my opinion hat on here, I think the weapons are the real stars of this show, of the banner here. Now let's look at this next guy. This is basically a dark memory weapon. So let's take a look at it. First of all, it has a good chonky attack stat, has decent HP and defense. Let's take a look at what this guy does for us. We have 100% times 5. That is dark memory level, and it's boosting the dark damage dealt by 50%. That is also dark memory level, okay? Let's take a look at this next one. Deal 100% times 4, and then it has a scaling caged vigor, okay? So this is basically the lower your HP gets, the more damage it does. So in theory, the lower you go, if you get down to 1 HP with a burn effect or a poison effect or something, and you're able to stay alive long enough to get a few hits in, those hits are going to be doing a lot of damage. So again, caged vigor is at the opposite end of the spectrum from bold vigor. The higher dynamic bold vigor, the higher your HP is, the more damage you're going to be doing. And the way you see that in the language, you'll see here, increases the lower your HP is. So that means that it's dynamic. So it's increasing the more your HP goes down. The bold vigor, it's increasing the more your HP goes up. That's the opposite end of the spectrum for these guys. Typically dark caters to the caged, and the light cages or caters to the bold. So you caught me being super distracted there for a minute because I had a honeydew coming up, so I had to check in on that. So now I'm back at the old location, as you can see, as evidenced by not the window. And so let's go ahead and wrap this up real quickly here. The last weapon is a 3-star weapon. It is good for what it is, and I would again say, as I have said in the past, do not sleep on these 3-star weapons. They are very good for what they do. Their values are not quite as high as the 4-star. They don't have quite the same level of stats, but they are still very good as a sub-weapon because their primary scaling abilities don't work as well. But they do have, for example, in this case, a caged vigor, as well as a void boon, which is a very powerful package for a dark element user. Now let's go ahead and jump out of this real quickly and let's take a look at our Recollections of Dusk Gayle. Alrighty. So here's what we got here. Let's take a look at her. This is our other, arguably more exciting costume. This is the first Recollections of Dusk character that I can say is really something. And let's first take a look at her weapon. So this is what people have been salivating over for an arena main hand. And let's take a look at why here, and you'll see why here very quickly. First of all, 14-second and 16-second cooldown on the abilities. Very, very good. What are we doing here? 60% damage to an enemy 4 times and increases all allies' light damage by 30%. This is all allies, so this is much like the subjugation staff, where it's increasing the light damage of all allies. This means that running a mono light team is very, very appealing with this because you've got 2 weapons now boosting the entire party's light damage to a ridiculous degree. And this is powerful, and light doesn't have a counter as far as things go. For example, if you're running fire and you bump into a water team, if you're running fire, you're doing less damage to water. The counter to light and dark, they counter each other, but basically what happens is whoever's attacking is doing more damage to the other. And so there is no real hard counter against light or dark elements, meaning that light and dark by intrinsically have an advantage. And so this is a big deal right here. I cannot emphasize that enough. Let's go to the next one. This is a 16-second cooldown. 50% damage times 5 when your HP is 70% or higher. Damage, the higher up you go, is up to 40% scaling. So this is, again, a dynamic, bold vigor. Very, very powerful. And then we've got abilities, Lucid Boon, 20%, which is 10% less than what we usually see on our weapons. So, but don't be fooled by that. The other things that this weapon has more than makes up for that. And then 30% for 60 seconds. All of our other gotcha pull weapons that are not our subjugation weapons are 20%. So this has that extra stack of timed fleetfoot on it. This is an absolutely banana salad bonkers weapon, okay? This is something that everybody, if they can, should be going for and putting it on their arena team. And if they have a Bloody Gale, for example, this is a phenomenal weapon on Bloody Gale. We're going for RoD Gayle here, then she's gonna be really good in arena too. Let's take a look at her real quickly. And let's bounce back over to our quests and our Recollections of Dusk and take a closer look at our girl here. So if we click on her info, that's her fully awakened stats. Now there is something that I said in my last video which was a little, so I need to clarify something that I said in my last video. The awakening stats that you gain are actually similar to the Mythic Slab board in that the stats aren't directly scaled off of for everything else within your character. Basically, the only thing that's scaled off of within your character is the base stats. And for example, if a character has a Vigor passive on them that gives them an attack plus 25%, then what will happen is that Vigor is actually factored into their overall attack rating. But that doesn't actually count for what everything scales off of. That's just something that's inflating the numbers, essentially. And Rayon did a very good breakdown of this in the Reddit, and I can go ahead and post a link to that so that people can go ahead and go through the damage or the calculation, essentially, that he put together. But these are her inflated stats, basically, from everything that she has. This also includes her Valiance, so she is applying that 15% to herself as well. So it's gonna be less than this, all right? She's gonna have the extra, I wanna say 20%, I think, from her Awakenings. I believe that the Recollections of Dusk characters are the same as the EX characters, where they're only getting 20% instead of the 4-star, where they're getting 30%. So, but she looks good. She looks real good, and she's got some good chonky stats on her. And she also has this guy right here, this Void Guard, which is really the more we get into more challenging content, don't discount this ability to take less damage, because the enemies that we're encountering are doing a lot of damage now. And anything that can help you to reduce the damage that you're taking is really important. So I think I'm gonna leave it here. This is something that everybody should be jumping into. Recollections of Dusk Gayle, she is awesome. As far as the banner goes, I'd say that if you are pressed to get a Dark Element Spear, we have a lot of other good dark weapons. We have Demos, EX Demos Gun, we have EX Lavania's Fists, and those are both amazing dark weapons. The Spear is basically EX level as far as damage output goes, and actually in some cases more because of the way it scales. We also have Mocha Joe's big ol' greatsword, which is basically one of the most busted weapons in the game if you utilize it properly, because it has that dynamic caged vigor attached to the second ability, and it does a lot of damage. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave it here for now, and I'm gonna just say, yeah, don't worry about the banner too much. Let's see what happens in the coming days and the coming weeks, and I'll just talk to y'all later. So peace out, have a good one, bye.